Good morning, sir. Hi.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the community that you represent?
Sure. And thanks for having me and allowing me the opportunity to speak for our community, the Vietnamese community. And my name is Nguyen. I'm the Executive Director of VN Teamwork, which is a nonprofit located in Southwest Houston, right on Bel Air, right in the heart of what we call Vietnamese town, what most people call Chinatown. But we definitely have we're one of the leading organizations in the Vietnamese community. Where basically, I don't know if you know, but we are the second largest Vietnamese community in the nation, getting towards 150,000. So very proud of that. And actually, this organization was started by my father, who was a refugee in '75. And his focus with this organization was to basically build up the Vietnamese community that he saw was struggling. They were continuing to come over as immigrants and still come over as immigrants and go through the same struggle he did as a refugee, with not much resources at all. So when he saw that, it was his vision to help the Vietnamese community through learning English, learning computer skills, just really adapting to America. And that seems to be a big problem in our community. And so that's why we have a Vietnamese town and everyone's secluded in that little country of theirs, And so that was back in 1996 when he founded the organization. Once we became a leading organization for the Vietnamese community, and he was quite a public leader himself. His next vision was, how do we take that strength of the Vietnamese community and really now give back? And that kind of came where I came in. Being an American-born citizen here, I grew up the American way. It was difficult for me because going home, I have my Vietnamese culture, and the other half of my life, and I always told my parents, I have another life, and it's living American life. I go to school and I have Anglo friends and African American friends and all types of friends that are not Vietnamese, and I see different cultures, and so that was quite a clash for us growing up. It's important to me that there's a unity with our community, with the rest of the communities at large, including the police officers, and I think that's what we're here to talk about. And so I'm glad to have the opportunity. I thank you and the Houston Police Department to allow us to have this voice.
Great, thanks. Think about that opportunity and building those bridges with HPD. Can you describe for us a little bit as to how you or who you have talked about the perception of the Vietnamese community towards law enforcement? What is that perception, that historical perception, or the current perception that's in the communities that you serve?
Okay, yeah. And as far as current, I think I can speak from myself because I was born here. So I'm used to the law enforcement here in the style and what's right, what's wrong. But when I knew I was going to come here to do this taping, I kind of did some research, and I've heard things before, so I reached out to the senior generation, and that would have the best, knowledge or part of their mind where they came from Vietnam, so they were used to what was happening over there, and then clashing with what was going on over here. And I think that's what's important and need to be talked about is, the perception. If you were to be at a big event, with a big Vietnamese event, and you had police officers out there and they're protecting. Mm-hmm. I think it's an overwhelming sense of security that they feel. They feel safe. But on the reverse side, when it's not a big event and they know it's not out there to just literally protect from other crime or other business, then at that point it's like, oh, are they following me? Are they going to pull me over? Or am I going to get in trouble? Oh, I don't know English. I don't even know how to speak to them. And so that kind of creates, language barrier itself, I'm sure with many communities, that creates a tension already,
Can you describe a little bit about how that generation of Vietnamese might feel about law enforcement in Vietnam? Mm-hmm. Were they fearful of the police over there? What was the status over there, and did that translate to come over here when they migrated into the United States?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it definitely directly affects what happens over here because over there, of course, being in a communist government, the government has all the control. which of course the police department is under the government. And so there's a lot of, I would say, strong arming going on. It's a lot of under the table things such as bribes. You can get away with a ticket or getting caught with something or whatever it is by just offering some money, you know. And having that type of a lifestyle and then coming over here, they learn very quickly that that's not what you're supposed to do, but they're learning the wrong way. You know, they're learning by offering the money and thinking they'll get away with it or whatnot. And some of these people are, you know, good people, but that's what they're accustomed to, and that's the problem. And of course, coming over here, that's going to be offensive to an officer over here, and you might have some handcuffs on you pretty quickly. Well, combining that together with also the culture of strong arming and then when you know, combine all these factors together, you kind of have this sense of maybe a little bit of a fear, you know, and that's where it's different from when it's a big event. It's not much fear because you know these officers are here and they're not exactly looking at you. They might have their back turned because they're looking outside to make sure no one's coming to you. But when it's the other way and they're looking at you, that's when the fear comes in.
What about the youth, the Vietnamese youth in the communities? How do they perceive law enforcement? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Let me share a story growing up.
Okay.
I was coming out of college and driving back home after class, just taking a lunch break. And I got pulled over by an officer, and a good thing it wasn't Houston Police Department, it was actually Sheriff's Department. But I got pulled over, and I was asked to step out of my car. And at that time, my hair is similar to this, maybe a little bit taller, but you know, I guess had a little bit of a crew cut, spikiness to it. But I was pulled out of the car and asked to walk over to his car and, you know, put my hands behind my back. And I had asked what's going on or why. And it was more of, you know, I couldn't talk, didn't let me talk, and just had to check my ID, do all those things. And, you know, I had my books in my car. And I didn't feel like I was doing anything wrong. And there was actually no reason to pull me over. And the reason he gave me was possible gang suspect. I remember that for the rest of my life, and I thought to myself, why would you think that when you see my car? Maybe because I have an import car, maybe, I'm not sure what it was. Maybe it wasn't the most high dollar car, and so that made me look like I could have been gang affiliated or just low income, I'm not sure. But you know, I just thought to myself, geez, I'm a good citizen, I was born here, I was doing everything right, and just because the way I look, it caused someone to pull me over and think I was part of a gang. You know, he even named a specific gang he thought I was a part of, and I was like, wow, I don't know what that is, but no, that's not me. But you know, he ended up letting me go, but I didn't get penalized, but I feel like it kind of scarred me, and I think others have gone through it. I think one thing I really definitely want to touch on that I think relates to this question is I think there's a lot of silence in our community, which, let's, you know, rewinding back to everything that we talked about, it all factors in. You have a police force in the old country that strong arms people, which creates a sense of non-security and a sense of these people aren't here to really help me. And it's funny because they have propaganda over there that says, in Vietnamese, the translation would be, the police are here to be your friend. But everyone, you know, just like my mom said, everyone knows it's the exact opposite of that. And it's funny that the government puts that out there. But when you have that tension or that sense of fear, it creates a silence. And what I mean by this is, for example, let's just take a female in a domestic violence issue or domestic abuse. They may or may not call the police. And the reason why is back at home, would the police really help you? Most of the police officers over there are male. You know, the culture is the male is very much has the control. The female doesn't.
I understand it's also a very patriarch type of culture, very male dominated.
Very male dominated, and so you really can't speak much. And so if you were to speak, the officer may or may not help. Most likely they're not going to help, and all that meant is, when they leave, you're going to get in more trouble when the door closes. Same thing over here is, you know, it translates right over here is, will we call the the police if they're getting beat on. We don't know. If they have the courage to do it, I promise you, and I'm sure this is the same with any community, you know, I promise you they have the huge fear of, well, what if the police leave? What happens after that?
Right.
And I'm going to get beat again. So.
Trying to bridge those gaps and create those understandings.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, okay.
It's beautiful. Well, hopefully in 10 or 20 years there won't be the culture gaps anymore.
Yeah.
So you're doing something that's at the beginning. So thank you.
Thank you very much for coming tonight. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much.